So this is a wireless Heatmiser job, which is around the London area. It's a pretty typical scenario with Heatmiser stuff that we find is they've used wireless equipment on a brand new installation, so they should have put cables in, which they haven't. So that's an issue with wireless connectivity. This house is over 4 stories, and it's got concrete floors in the building as well, and it's going to be mega insulated. So getting wireless signals around the house is difficult. So don't use wireless equipment if you've got the opportunity to put cables in, full stop. Yeah, so that's the first thing straight away that's a problem. Then, you know, the rooms are boiling hot upstairs and the thermostats aren't calling. There's not much control over a water cylinder. They called the bloke out, an emergency call out, and he came out because he had no hot water. And all he's done is just put the timer on continuous for heating and hot water. So they've got a control upstairs, which I'll show you. So you've got a controller and then another controller after that. So we need to eliminate some of these controllers for starters. And then the thermostats are all allocated to the incorrect zones. None of the pipework is identified, so you don't know which areas are being switched. And they'd used 3 hubs throughout the building. I'm assuming because they were struggling getting wireless signals around. You can add multiple locations on the app, which are for if you've got multiple sites, for example, that you manage, or your multiple homes that you've got, or whatever. So the way they'd had it set up is they'd had 3 separate sites set up at this job with 3 separate hubs over 3 floors, which is just confusing the matter even more. So I want to use one hub, have it all on one system, and try and simplify it as well. I'll just give you a walk round now and show you what we've got and, you know, how it's sort of functioning in a minute before I'm going to start identifying pipework. Right, so I'll start with the top floor. So apparently there's no heating up here. That radiator doesn't work, apparently. Open it, it's boiling hot in here. Absolutely insanely hot. So the heating is clearly just, oh, there's 2 cylinders. That's why it's so hot up here then. So the heating is just pumping out permanently, it feels, in this house. So I've had to open all the windows around the home to try and drop the temperature. I'm isolating the heating and the hot water completely, and then I'm deleting all the thermostats. I'm just factory resetting all the thermostats, and then I'm going to work my way through the pipework, and then I can repair the thermostats to the correct zones when we know where all the pipework goes. But there's also issues with hot water here as well, so control over hot water. So we've got 2 water cylinders, 2 valves there. We've got another tank with another 2 valves on in here. Try and find out why this radiator isn't working. Here's the boiler, and this is the main controller. So this had just been set onto continuous hot water and heating by the guy that came on the emergency call out when they didn't have any hot water. There's no control over the hot water, he just switched it on permanently. So he didn't fix that at all and charged him an absolute premium for that. So we need to get rid of this controller, again identify all the wiring where it goes, and then add some Heatmiser controls onto this as well. So we'll have Heatmiser controller for hot water cylinder, and then we'll lose the control for the heating because the Heatmiser does the control for the heating. So again, this controller for heating doesn't need to be there. We can get rid of that. So what we've got on this floor is we've got kind of plant room here. So we've got 1 manifold that does the circuits on this floor, UH8, and then we've got 4 thermostats up here. There's a bathroom there which doesn't have a thermostat in, so I'm assuming it's a shared loop or there's no heating in there, which we'll find out. Start for this room. Start for this bedroom. And again, an ensuite with, which I'm not sure how it's controlled yet. And we've got this room, we've got the windows open in here to drop the temperature. So we've got thermostat here, ensuite. So yeah, this is a concrete floor as well, so it's all like buried in screed, not in timber joists, the floor. underfloor heating. So thermostat for in here, thermostat for in here, dressing room. Now I have turned all these thermostats off, yet something is still calling for this here. So we've got zone 1 is still calling for heat, even though I've isolated all the thermostats, so we've got an issue there. Wiring wise, power in, no local isolation anywhere. So there should be an isolator or something here so we can isolate this unit, which there isn't. Control wiring is just done from the heating position, I'm assuming it was just showing you a minute ago. So you've just got a black cable which is jointed here, which is for the hot water. So no control for the hot water is done at this point. It's just jointed here. And then you've got the boiler enable connections there. And then you've got all the underfloor heating zones there, which again, none of them are labelled up. We don't know what any of these do, where they go, and whether these are on any of the correct connections. So we don't know what thermostat's connected to what zone, and then we don't know what actuator is connected to which heating loop as well. So all this stuff needs finding out first. So there's 2 thermostats down here. Lounge, which is off. Garage, nothing in there. UH8 in here. Manifold, no labelling. So they're all off at the minute. Yes, nothing in there. So we've got this room here. 1 thermostat. I don't know if that's controlling this room or all of it. Manifold UH8 down here, and then there was another hub plugged in there. So there's a hub down here, hub on the middle floor, hub on the top floor. There's been a leak on this, so that's why they had to chip the wall out to fix it as well. You've got a cinema room with no thermostat in here. So we've got this, what would be a cinema room, no thermostat. And then this room, this huge room, which has got a thermostat in here as well. So there is 4 areas potentially down here and only 2 thermostats. So that's where we're at the minute. Okay, so now I've got all these circuits off via the thermostats. I'm gonna go wipe all the thermostats back to factory settings, and then we can start identifying circuits. Okay, this thermostat in here is not responding. The light just popped on then, but so yeah, I'm trying to factory reset this, and nothing is happening. Okay, so I'll pop the batteries out of this for a little while, which will have been done some more, wiped, reset a few other thermostats, so we'll just see if this has made a difference. There you go. So I'll pop the batteries out and now it's responding. But yeah, that wasn't actually responding to anything then. You couldn't turn the temperature up, put any program settings in it or anything. So batteries out, reset it, back in again. So I'll wipe this now. So I'll highlight setup, push and hold tick for 10 seconds. So as again, we want one, but if you want, that one is thermostat only, 2 is thermostat and programmer, 3 is thermostat and hot water. We're not controlling any hot water with these, it's going to have its own hot water controller. We're not, I don't want any program times on it because that's not how you work underfloor heating. It just needs to be left on and it keeps the room at that temperature as and when it needs to. Because at the minute, apparently the program settings that they've got set on one of these, one of the controllers, was to come on and off 4 times a day, apparently, on one of the controllers that they've got. I don't know which one, but the floor's never going to get to temperature in that room because it needs a lot longer to climb to temperature. And then the fact that these houses are so well insulated, supposed to be so well insulated, the temperature, it should hold that temperature for quite a long time as long as the windows are open, and it drops very gradually, very slowly. So it's basically, you just keep these rooms topped up to temperature as and when it's required. You don't have them firing up for like 2 hours and then off completely and firing up. It's not a radiator. It normally works at a lot lower temperature than a radiator, so it takes a lot more time. Plus it's got to get through whatever material it's buried in. So it's buried in concrete, it's got a wooden floor over it, tiles, carpet. It takes different times to come through different floor materials. So yeah, underfloor heating, it needs to be in non-programmable mode, thermostat only. Right, that has been a battle, getting everything disconnected from this. There must either some controllers are connected to this that I can't find, or there was a problem with this circuit board. So what I'm doing now is I'm manually going through it using the dip switches, and I've opened circuit 4. So one thing I have noticed is there was only one zone open before. I've checked all the voltages, checked the fuses, and then 4 of these circuits were open, even though only one of the zones was on, and we don't have force actuators connected into any one of these connections. So that's a bit suspect, there's some other potential issues here. But now we've got, all these have closed now, whereas, say, there's a little pin that pops up out of these when it's open. So I have, like I said, I've activated zone 4, which is this one, which has got one actuator in it. So I'm just going to wait for that actuator to open now. I've enabled heating on, I've put the heating back onto continuous. I've turned the hot water off on the main controller, where the boiler cupboard is, which you've seen. And then I'm going to go now to the next floor, do the same thing, go down to the next floor, do the same thing. Now go through one circuit at a time on each floor to try and identify where these go. And looking at the building, I think there has been either lots of shared circuits. So you've got that room there is ridiculously hot in the ensuite. So if this is, again, it's a very common thing. If we've got a shared heating loop within there, the thermostat is reading the temperature in here, which is a lot lower because it's a bigger room. Potentially they might have a window open. And in the ensuite, it is boiling hot. And you can't isolate that. The only way you can isolate it is turn this thermostat off, and that means you've got no heating in this room. So this is a common thing as well. When they lay the underfloor heating pipes, they don't put enough circuits in. So that's how it seems at the minute. So either there's not enough circuits in, or there's enough circuits in and there's not enough thermostats in. Because we've got 4 thermostats on this floor. Yet we've got 7 circuits. So that would suggest that there is not enough thermostats separating the zones. So we probably need to add a lot more thermostats to the system on each floor from what I've seen so far, but we'll find out. Okay, I've wiped thermostat in the lounge now to factory settings. This one back to factory settings, and what I've done is, again, this was flicking on and off just like upstairs, even though everything was unpaired. So I did the same thing again. I've changed the channel number so nothing can communicate with this now. And then in here also I've noticed there was some bell wire, so this kind of like wiring that you would see in a vehicle is used in here, which is a bit worrying because that goes into the fabric of the building, and then that is connected into the hot water and enable, and then also boiler. So on this unit here, it looks like one of the controllers is potentially set up to control hot water, which again I'm removing that and going to put a separate water controller on that anyway, so that doesn't matter, I can disregard that. I've just left a boiler enable pump on and manually opened this one to heat each one up individually, same as the ground floor. Initially I just turned zone 2 on and it opened 2 actuators, but as there's probably not enough thermostats on each zone in here, we need to identify them one at a time. If this was just a 2-zone manifold, it's easier to identify. So yeah, as that only had one circuit in it, zone 4, I just activated zone 4 on the dip switches, but now we've got multiple doubled up connections. Now I'm gonna have to start manually going through these one at a time, because again, opening 2 or 3 together isn't helpful because they might all be going to different places. So yeah, as soon as we start hitting multiple connections, we start manually opening the valves. So again, this is a very common thing we see in installations, where these flow meters are getting cloudy. You can see the difference there, can't you, with that one and that one. Maybe there was a lot of debris in the system when it was, when it was being set up. It's got a lot of dirt into the system whilst being set up as well, so probably could do with power flushing the system as well, just to make sure that doesn't damage any equipment in the next few years. So cellar, in the cellar we've got half a circuit in this room. Yeah. Close that circuit and open another one. So this is the hallway and toilet circuit for the ground floor. I'm still across 3 stories identifying heating loops one at a time, and now I've added 3 booster plugs to the circuit now. So we're running on one Neo hub, which is there in the comms cabinet. Disconnected the other 2 hubs. Now I've put booster sockets, 1 on each floor. I know the hub's right there, but these have got really strong antennas on them, so one's going on each floor, and I've put it in here because it's out of the way and they're ugly. So you've got 1 smart plug there, you've got 1 smart plug upstairs on this floor, because we're going to have to put some controls potentially up here for the water tanks. So we've got a plug there as well. And then we've got 1 in the kitchen. I've got a delivery coming tomorrow of some extra thermostats, which we need to add to because there's not enough in the building, plus an extra booster as well. So in total, we're going to have 4 booster plugs, 1 on each floor. And it just improves the speed of the connection. That's the wireless connection. So yeah, it switches a lot faster if you've got a nice strong signal in the house. So I'm working my way through these thermostats now, repairing them and labeling them up the correct areas. Then I'm adding some more thermostats to the system and put them in the correct areas. And then once we've identified all the heating loops, then we can connect the heating loop to the relevant heating zone. Flow meters, again on the ground, on this floor too, you're looking a bit hazy. So that's potential sludge, debris in the system that's going to block valves, damage boilers, etc. So again, I recommend a power flush for the system just to make sure we've got all the equipment and pumps and valves, boilers protected. I finished last night and I managed to label the entire ground floor circuits, 3/4 of the cellar circuits, half of these circuits up here. Added an extra 2 thermostats downstairs to the manifold that were missing. We've reprogrammed all the thermostats on the first and ground floor. And then what else have we done? Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I was up to last night. So I'm coming back again today and continuing labelling these final circuits on this floor and on the ground floor. We've got a faulty UH8 here. So no matter what I do with this, I've deleted all the thermostats off it. I've changed the channels now 4 times, and it's still circuits number 2, sometimes 3, but mainly 2 keeps pinging back on. So I think we've got a faulty circuit board on this, because no matter what I do, it always keeps the switching circuit 2 back on. So they did say that one of the rooms upstairs was always on, so that would suggest that it was something to do with this, because I think there's 2 actuators connected in zone 2, so there's 2 of these heating circuits that will have been opening and closing. It keeps flicking on and off as well. It'll flick off after a while, but then it comes back on again. So I think we're going to have to order a new circuit board and replace this. Right, so in the cellar, this has been left on all night, as you can see, nice clear line, and then it does the back end of this games room, which is exactly what we wanted. I was worried there was going to be a plumbing issue down here, but no, that's good. So that's that. So all we need to do now is highlight this front half, which I'm assuming will be... Oh. Have we highlighted the front half? We must have already done that, because that's neat, yeah. So that's 5. So I've been through all these now, and that circuit in there was the last one to identify. So that's the second half of the games room. So the games room's in 2 halves, the gym's in 2 halves, and then the cinema room is on its own 1 circuit. So that's what the 5 circuits are on this floor now. So they're fully identified. We've not had this, I've changed the channels on this again, and we've not had this flicking on and off like the one upstairs. So, you know, we've not had any problems with this either, which is good. Okay, so this radiator up here, apparently it's not even been plumbed in, but she did mention somebody came to try and resolve the issue of why it isn't working, and he said he bled the radiator and water came out, so it's obviously connected to a system, but like that guy just left and has still left it not functioning. So this has got no control up here, apart from the radiator valve, and you know, there was no indication of where it was plumbed to or anything like that, so that's just been off the whole time. So we've managed to find now that's connected to zone 1 on this manifold. So actually this valve is closed, so not the top adjustment of the flow meter, the actual bottom section there was down, which means it's closed completely. So I took the red cap off, opened that, this was popped off, water started flowing because the valve was open upstairs. So what we need to do is add a thermostat onto this system, and then we'll pair it to the new UH8 once I've replaced this faulty one. And then the thermostat upstairs will control that radiator only, and then if a heat is ever required up there, it switches the circuit, boiler enable, pump enable, opens the valve. So that's what we'll have to do. There's nothing wrong with taking a radiator to a manifold. So most of the time what people do is they'll keep a manifold separate for radiators and manifolds for underfloor heating, because then you don't have to have this thermostatic valve on here limiting the temperature going through it, and you can get your radiators to a hotter temperature, whereas that radiator is limited to whatever the temperature is on here. I think this is the best way to do a heating system, whether it's underfloor heating, radiators, towel rails, or everything, because each radiator has its own circuit, which gives us the ability to control every room or every towel rail or every radiator separately, give it its own thermostat, and it's way more efficient and gives it all like the most flexibility for control that you can have. So I think this is how all heating systems should be piped. So the rooms that we've identified up here, every bedroom has got an ensuite, and the same heating loop is used through the ensuite and back. The thermostat in every bedroom controls the bedroom and it controls the bathroom. So the only problem with that is this room is considerably larger. Again, this is a thing that is so common, but this is to do with when it was piped on installation. So not enough circuits have been put in when the underfloor heating pipework was going in. And I don't understand, I don't understand why, because all the floors are all up, everything's going in. I don't understand why they've missed out so many. It just means you have to put a bigger manifold on, that's all. Run some extra circuits, because you've run the pipework in anyway, added to this circuit, just run a separate circuit to the manifold. So in here, this room now is no windows in here, it's tiny, it is boiling hot. So if you want the heating on in this room, you have to have the heating on in there. And this is only at 19.8 in here, but in there it's more like 23 degrees or something, because it's a smaller room with no ventilation. Well, it's got a fan, but minimal ventilation, whereas this is a bigger room with windows that they may have open during the day or something, which drops the temperature, which might bring the heating on and make this ridiculously hot. So again, if you like, say, a cold room for sleeping, but you might want a warm bathroom, that's not an option. You either have to have the heating on, which means the bathroom is boiling, or you have to have the heating off completely in this room if you want to cool this room down. So, most people are happy to manage that, but me personally, in a brand new build, there's no excuse for using wireless thermostats and for missing out circuits. As you can see, that patch there is in two halves in here, so the gym's got two circuits. So that back corner was the one we did last, and this one we heated up first thing, so it started to cool now. So we proved that the gym was in two loops, and then you can see that pipe there just sneaks under that door. And this is the cinema room, and you can see that the heat starting to, God, it's hard to see when it's dark. So you can see the heat is starting to come through the floor there, but I've isolated that now. So yeah, we believed that originally there was no heating in there, which we've now proved there is. So that is missing a thermostat as well. So we've now added a new V3. So the V3 ones, I've got actual buttons on now. I thought the touch buttons on the old V2s were a bit intermittent. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Bit of a pain. Sometimes you brush against them and accidentally switch something on and off. So these have got an actual physical button on them, which I think is better. So this is the V3 version now. I don't think they make the V2 anymore. Neo Air anyway. So what I've done is we've identified that the kitchen's got its own loop, the dining area's got its own loop. So we don't need to have both of them on together as one room. So I've added that to that. I'm just getting everything paired up to the Neo app at the minute and putting things roughly in the locations, the extra thermostats where they need to be, reprogramming the existing ones. And then tomorrow I'm going to be adding them all to the UH8, then pairing them to the UH8 and then connecting the relevant heating loops up. So like here you can see now we've identified these: hall, toilet, lounge, dining, kitchen. Whereas before these had all the incorrect labels on. I think that was labelled up lounge, so it's been rubbed off. So this was labelled lounge, which is actually the kitchen. So if all the pipes are labelled up incorrectly, and even if all this work's done correctly, it's still going to be switching the wrong room. So it's important that everything all the way from the start to the UH8 actuator to the pipework is labelled correctly, so there's no mix up. So this isn't really regarding the heating system, but it's the electrical installation that the heating system is connected to. So the only reason why I'm kind of looking into, I look into everything. If I've got to touch the circuit or touch whatever, I'll just check everything and make notes, as I'm going. So what we've noticed is there is a socket circuit for the second floor, a ring circuit for the second floor. And off that ring circuit, you've got the entire heating system throughout the building. So all the manifolds, all the valves, controls, pumps, boiler, everything throughout the house is also on this circuit up here. Better practice would be to put the heating system on its own independent circuit, because you know, if the socket circuit ever went down, so does the heating. And then also the immersion heaters are both, so there's 2 immersion heaters, 1 in each cupboard, and these FCUs are connected to the ring circuit as well. And that is definitely incorrect, because any fixed heating appliance above 2 kilowatts should be on its own independent circuit. So these are both 3 kilowatts each. So if both of these immersion heaters are required, basically if the boiler ever goes into failure for a couple of days, they can't get it repaired and they have to use the immersion heaters, that's 6 kilowatts of load on that ring circuit. So that is 100% incorrect. So these should have independent circuits run to them as well, just for the immersion heaters. And you know, you would put one in for the heating, because it's such a big heating system. It's just, again, good practice to do that. So what we've noticed down here is there's no test date stickers on the consumer unit. I'm just going to say to check that you've received all your installation certificates and Part P certificates with the job. And then also it's a split load consumer unit. Now, more commonly today, there's nothing wrong with this, you know, as such, because everything's RCD protected. But on a smaller property, I'd say, is probably acceptable. But on this property, because it's so big and there's so much electronics, there's a lot of earth leakage on here. And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 circuits on one 30 milliamp RCD. Now, I've done an earth leakage measurement just on this side, and it's like 15, 16 milliamps, and the maximum earth leakage you're allowed on a 30 milliamp is 9 milliamps of earth leakage. So this is a brand new installation, and there's already too much earth leakage on this RCD. So, you know, because again, this is obviously that's going to happen because of the size and the amount of equipment on the installation. It's got control 4 gear everywhere. So better practice would be putting an RCBO consumer unit on this, and then that wouldn't be an issue. And then also, if we get nuisance tripping in future, it's going to take half of the house out if one of the RCDs goes. So again, just bad practice. When on a job that was worth this much money, I don't know why a split load RCD budget consumer unit has been used. I don't understand why. So that's another thing I've kind of noticed along here. All right, next thing I'm going to tackle is this controller. So at the minute, this seems to function the way it's supposed to. So, you know, I can isolate the hot water or I can isolate the heating from here. Wiring centre's a bit of a mess, bit of a dog's dinner. There's a cable there, not with a cord grip, just kind of hanging out the bottom. Connector blocks are used as well. I don't rate these. The connections are normally quite poor on connector blocks, so them Wago connectors are preferable. But these things generally are a bit messy because there's so many cables in them. It is difficult sometimes to keep these tidy. So yeah, this side of it seems to be functioning correctly because the boiler's firing up when it needs to. The valves are opening on the mega flows when they need to, and when I isolate it, it closes the valves on the mega flows. And we're getting heating flow around the underfloor heating system as well when we call for heat from the UH8. So in the conventional sense, it seems to be functioning as it should. There's that bell wire that I mentioned on the ground floor kitchen manifold as well. I don't know what that's about, why they've used that, but that isn't right as well. So circuit 5, this has been left on all night and the rest of them isolated to just clarify it, and I'd say that is pretty clear now, isn't it? Boom. All right, first floor, circuit 6 is a patch here on this section of landing, but no heating on that section of landing. And then also it does a patch of heating in this bathroom, but it doesn't do the full length of the bathroom. And they start further over. So you've got 3/4 of the bathroom covered. Right, so we've got rid of the old controller. Currently got the boiler fired up. You see the radiator flashing. We've got rid of the old controller. I've changed the wiring round. We've lost the control, because the old controller was controlling the underfloor heating, and then it was going via all the UH8s and the stats. So there was a controller in front of all the other controllers, which is completely unnecessary. So we've lost that out of there now, and we've just got that permanently connected. All the UH8s are doing the control, the boiler enable and everything now. And then we've used the connections here to activate the hot water. So this is a Neo HW, or you can use this as an optional stat as well. So they're a HW and timer, or they're a thermostat as well. At the minute I've got this switched on override. Pumps have come on. Both valves are open on the hot water tanks. So there you go. Both heating's off at the minute because I've got that isolated, because none of the UH8s are calling for heat, which is what I want. So that one's locked, see how off, and then this one's loose. So we've got hot water controller that I've just added. It's currently on. Override for 50 minutes. If I turn that off, boom, the motorized valve's isolated, and therefore the boiler enable is isolated, which switches the boiler off. So both of these valves now are closed. Yep. So that hot water, that Neo HW now is on the Neo app now, and then they can set program on-off periods for when they want the water to come on and off, whereas before it was intermittently working the hot water. And I think I know the reason why. I'll just show you in a minute. Somebody came around in an emergency call out and just turned the time clock onto permanent manual override in there, so they had hot water, and that seemed to sort of work. But I found that they'd wired the hot water enable in two of these UH8s through the controls on the UH8. So you can see on there the hot water is just jointed in the common, and that's fine because we're not controlling the hot water via this controller. But downstairs it was in the common and then the normally open. So the hot water was being switched from some of the thermostats because they had default programs in them. So like the water was getting hot, cold, and this would explain why. Is the wiring has been incorrectly connected into the UH8, going via wireless thermostat programmers. So that would explain the inconsistencies with the hot water. So now they're just jointed in every, downstairs I've just jointed them in Wago connectors. I've just left that one because it's fine. And then, so these have nothing to do with the hot water now. That cable is just jointed on its way through to the unit, to the UH8s, and the controller now up there does the switching of the hot water. So I'm just disconnecting this now. I'm going to leave the enclosure on the back. I'm pretty sure it's the same size enclosure, and just change the circuit board. This is the old UH8 RF, and this is the new UH8 RF V2. So it's got pairing buttons on the front of the panel, so you have to connect the front panel via a lead, which is not the old one. Then you've got different switches above each circuit. So one is radiator with zone valve end switch. Switch 2 is radiator with actuators, enables heat output. And then switch 3 is enabled underfloor heating, enables zone, manifold pump and heat output. You've got a dew point connection as well on there. Heat and cool enable, so we can use it for cooling. Switch the circuit board over. So you've got, this is, see, it's just better to be a bit more organised while you're doing it because it's easy to mix stuff up. So we've got the two greys which were heat enable, which I've connected. The two blacks were hot water, so I've just jointed them because we've got the controller doing that job now. And then now what we've done is, so I've labelled these up 1 to 7. Only reason I've done that is just so you can use these, you can like mark the cables up with the corresponding numbers. I've got to mark these yet. I'm re-identifying this one because I didn't write it down at the time. So I'm gonna have to do it again. And then I need to label the pipework. Then I will label each actuator with a label maker. And then we know that that actuator, which is labelled number 1 on here, we know that number 1 here, sorry, goes to number 1 actuator. And then once we've allocated the relevant zones on here, I mean, if you could put them in zone order on there as well, it's even better, isn't it? So it's like zone 1 equals actuator 1. So it's all corresponding, isn't it, as it comes through. So if you've got that ability to do that, if you can do that, even better. But as long as you know which actuators you're connecting to the correct thermostats, then once you've done that, you can label everything up afterwards, like finally. So that's where I'm at the minute. So we've brought all the cables in some sort of order, a little bit neater than before. And then I'm going to start pairing all the Neostats now to the new UH8, and once we've allocated the thermostats to the UH8, then we can connect the relevant heating zones to the relevant zone on here. So this is a thermostat I'm going to add to upstairs because we've now discovered that the radiator upstairs is controlled from here. We need to put a thermostat upstairs to be able to activate the boiler enable, and then it will open the valve and start the heat flowing. So even though the radiator's got a valve on upstairs, we still need to put this upstairs because if you just open the valve on the radiator, it's not going to fire the boiler up. So it needs some sort of control on it. So this will be on the second floor, just controlling the radiator. So I'm just going to pair this now to the Neo app first, and then I will pair it to the UH8. So when these things aren't fixed to the wall as well and you're doing this, make sure you label them up what they are, because you've allocated this thermostat to, you know, second floor on here. You've called it second floor, and then if you put 4 of these down and you mix them up, you're not going to remember which ones are where, and you're going to fix them on the wall in the room. They're going to be switching the wrong zones. Okay, right, so we're going to go on add thermostat. We're going to call it second floor radiator. Yep. Next. All right, so now that's looking for the thermostat. So we're going to go to scroll to, on the V3 this is, scroll to power, push and hold tick, setup's highlighted. So push tick twice. Now that's looking. So that little thing will flash and go solid when it's connected, and then you'll get this device found, finish or add another device. Yeah, so now we've got second floor radiator. Now we're able to switch this thermostat on and off via the app, even though it's not connected to anything yet. So that's the connection you need to do to connect it to the Neo hub. Now we've got the second floor radiator thermostat paired with the Neo app. Now I'm going to pair the thermostat to the relevant zone that I want on here. So I haven't got any of these connected yet, which is a little bit, one thing that is a bit annoying about this new one is you have to have the front panel clipped into the circuit board for you to be able to do the pairing. So previously you could just put on the channel number inside and then pair it to the channel number, whereas they haven't got the channel number inside anymore now. They've got these buttons on the front. So it's an improvement in one way, but if I haven't got the actuators connected yet, because I'm allocating the thermostat zones first to the UH8, and on this particular job, that's the order that I'm doing it. Yeah, just because I haven't finished identifying the zones properly yet, I haven't connected the actuators yet. So I want to allocate, say the stats first. So to do that, if you're doing it this way around, like I'm doing, you have to plug the power supply in and just kind of have it floating there at the front. So we know that the second floor thermostat is connected to this zone here, because I mentioned before the pipework goes upstairs. So I've labelled it up there, second floor rad, yeah? So we know that number 1 is the second floor rad. So I know that I need to connect cable 1 into zone 1 once I've paired it to that. So we'll pair this thermostat to zone 1 on here, and then that's nice and logical then, isn't it? So you have to highlight the power button, push and hold that for 3 seconds, setup's highlighted, push the tick, you got a 01 in the top right hand corner, push the down button till you get P1 and then push tick. Now that'll count down because it's trying to find for 99 seconds because it's trying to find this. So then while that's counting down, push and hold this for 5 seconds. So that flashed then saying that it was connected. So you just cancel the countdown by pushing the tick button, and that now should be paired to this zone. So let's turn the temperature up beyond what it is. It's 25 degrees and it is boiling. Right, so I've turned that on. There you go. So that's the issue you get with wireless stuff. I know that might seem trivial to some people, but if you've got a wired stat in, you push it on, you push tick, it's bang, it's connected. As soon as you've made the signal on the app, as soon as it settles, it's bosh, it's switched on, connected straight away. Whereas this stuff takes a while for the wireless signal to switch zones, so you just have to be a bit patient with it, not switching it on and off all the time, assuming that it's not done its job. Right, so we've allocated this thermostat to zone 1. We know that heat circuit 1 is the second floor radiators, so then I will connect this cable into zone 1 on the wiring center on the UH8. That'll open the actuator, start the pump, boiler enable, and allow heat to flow through that circuit. Second floor, the first floor and the ground floor up and running last night. Connected, paired to the UH8. Everything was I've already done the pairing to the hub. We've got all these labelled up. We've got all these labelled up and connected in the correct zones. So I've left on all night the master bedroom because there was a bit of confusion with that because there's sort of 3 circuits in one room and because of the routes they take. So let's have a look. So we've left this on purposely. So a good chunk of the landing heated by the master bedroom circuit, and then you've got this little patch here heated by the bathroom circuit, and then 3/4 of the bathroom heated. You can't see it in a minute because it's not on. But yeah, there's 3/4 of this heated and that heated by the bathroom circuit, and then this heated and the master bedroom heated by the master bedroom circuit. So if you do want to control the heat on the landing, it's impossible. Plus all the other ones take a route right through here, so it's probably always going to be warm on the landing, which you haven't got much control of. So yeah, let's see the circuit that we left on. There we go. So that's nice and clear now. So we're just checking this final circuit now, so I've been a bit premature here. So that's the circuit we've just tested, which is master bedroom. That's currently up. We've got the thermostat calling and it's piped to master bedroom. So we've just proved that because I've left it on overnight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm turning on what we're assuming is bedroom 2, because it was the only one left after we've got to zone 6 last night. So I'm making the assumption that it's bedroom 2. So this is bedroom 2. This is one loop, which also does the ensuite. So I've just turned this up now, which has activated zone 7 on the UH8, which is going to open zone 7 on the actuator. And then I'm going to turn this off now, which we've left on all night. Now I'm going to leave that while I go down to the cellar and start doing the same thing what I've done here, and hopefully this room's going to heat up. Okay, so down here in the cellar, this is the current setup just before I change it. So there's a stat here which I've just wiped in this room, which is, fine there where that is. And then there is a gym in there which has got no thermostat in it, and this is the thermostat controlling. I don't know what that was controlling, but there's no heating loop in the hallway, so there's no reason for this to be in the hallway. And then there's a room in there with its own heating loops with no thermostat. And then the cinema room has no thermostat at all for the heating loop as well. So I'm going to add a thermostat to here. This is all coming off the wall because they've just done a cheap job of it. So this is all being redone properly. So I've just cut that out there just so I can stick it on the wall so they don't lose it. So that thermostat I've just wiped, relocate into there, add a thermostat to here, and then we'll pair that to the system. Right, so this is where I'm currently at in here. I've just labelled the pipework up based on the identification I'd done a couple of days ago. And I'm just gonna pull all these cables out, put them back in a bit neater, and then label the cables up 1 to 5, so we know what they are, because at the minute they're just coming in a bit of a mess and they're all twisted in. It's easy to mix them up. So pull them out one at a time, label them up as I put them back in. Then I will label all these actuators the same as these. Here's the hot water connections that I said was done incorrectly. So one of the circuits, I think it was the top floor, was just doubled up into the common, which was fine. But they weren't actually using these for switching the hot water. They haven't programmed it to do that anyway. So by the default programs on the whichever thermostat it happened to be was actually sometimes opening and closing the hot water, and that's why they've had some issues with inconsistent hot water. So we've just lost that. I've just put it in a way go because we're not using hot water control on these UH8s. We've got now that independent controller in the boiler cupboard for that. Right, so just want to point this out for the labelling. The cellar is the only part of the installation that's got multiple heating circuits going to one room. So this is a very common thing. You can have one circuit per room, you can have 7 or 20 circuits per room, and that will be controlled by only sometimes 1 or 2 zones, even though there's lots of actuators. So if this was a very big room, for example, all these could be controlling just one room. So you wouldn't have zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just have them all in zone 1, or half of them in 1 and half of them in zone 2. If we're splitting the room into different thermostats. So the numbers on the front there are not to be confused with zones. Yeah. They are circuit numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all they are. They're a point of reference for labelling. So we know this cable goes to 1, this cable goes to 2. And then we know that cables 1 and 2 go to zone 1 because we're just using one zone to control the gym. The cinema room's on one circuit, so that will go to zone 2. And the games room is using 2 circuits, but again, he's only on 1 thermostat, so that'll go to zone 3. So even though we've got 5 circuits, we're only using 3 zones on the UH8. So yeah, just so there's no confusion, if there is a circuit per room, it's easier to allocate zone 1 to circuit 1, zone 2 to circuit 2, and there's a bit more continuity there. But that isn't the purpose of these numbers on here. That is purely circuit numbers. Seeing as though I've just mentioned circuits on the underfloor heating manifold and zones on the UH8. So this is just an example of how I've labelled stuff up and how it can vary between a manifold that's got 1 circuit per zone on the UH8 or a manifold that's got multiple circuits allocated to 1 zone on the UH8. So here we've got ground floor. That was a straightforward one. Circuits 1, 2, 3 and 4, all just doing one area: kitchen, dining room, lounge, hall, toilet. So we were able to allocate zone 1 to circuit 1, zone 2 to circuit 2. So that's a lot clearer, and like I mentioned, it's got more continuity. Same with the manifold on the first floor. It was just 1 circuit per area, so I was able to just allocate that circuit to the same zone on the UH8. Whereas the manifold in the cellar, as you can see there, we've got 5 heating circuits, and 2 of them are for the gym, 2 of them are for the games room, 1 is for the cinema room. This is the reason why you need to label up the circuits separately on a manifold and then the zones separately on the UH8. This is how I label stuff on my report. So 1, I know how everything is, and 2, I can send this to the customer as well. We've got manifold circuits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we've got UH8 zone 1 is doing the gym. So it's 1 zone that's controlling 2 circuits. And then zone 2 is cinema room, which is on circuit 3. And then zone 3 is doing 2 circuits. So zone 3 is actually controlling circuits 4 and 5. So that's why it can get more confusing, because the numbers, basically zones 1 to 3, don't match up with circuits 1 to 3. So it's very important that you make a note of this stuff for that reason. Okay, so I've added the last 3 circuits down here now, so that's all done. Zones labelled up on the UH8, zones labelled up on the actuators, pipework labelled up, stats are paired to the UH8, stats are paired to the Neo app. I just like to run everything via the app just to make sure everything's switching. So I'll go through every circuit that I've done. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I'll just give you an example of just me flicking through now. So games room, turn that up. So games room is on zone 3. So we're wanting zone 3 to come on. So it takes a minute because it's the wireless system. There you go, zone 3, so you've got pump, boiler. Boiler means you've got heat enable switch, and then pump means you've got the pump activated, which we require in this situation. We need heat enable for the boiler to fire up, and we need the pump fired up as well. So that was zone 3. Games room. Games room. Okay, so let's turn that back off now. So games room I'm on at the minute. So we want to turn zone 3 off. And while we're waiting for that to go off, let's have a look at gym. there is a delay with the wireless equipment, so it does take considerably longer to switch circuits, the wireless system. If it's a wired system, it's just it's instant. That number stops flashing. Once you've changed it, it flashes for a few seconds. As soon as that number stops flashing, it switches. But as you can see now, I did that a little while ago. There you go, now it's gone off. So you, like I say, you have to wait. Make sure you're patient with it, with the wireless stuff. Jim's highlighted. We've got Jim on zone 1, so we want turn that on, and then we want zone 1 to activate. There you go, that was a lot faster. Zone 1, Jim. Turn that back off. And then that's off now. So it's cinema room. Let's do that one, turn that one on. The cinema room is zone 2. So cinema room, zone 2, cinema room. We'll just wait for that to come on now, as we've called for heat. Here you go, zone 2, cinema room on. Turn it down again. Cool. Right, so everything is labelled up now. That's the gym thermostat. I can't put that on the wall in there because he's in there at the minute with floor adhesive down and doing the floor. So that was there. That's going to be going in that room. So I've just left it there for now. And now I'm going to do some recalibrating. So we've got a new thermostat in here. Got labelling on the plug, booster plug. Right, so I'll just show you this one, but I'm going to go through the entire house. As some of these are older, not old, but you know, as some of these have been in 6 months or whatever it is, plus the new ones I've installed, again, I just recalibrate it all to the same temperature sensor, because even brand new ones can be quite a way out sometimes. So this is the app that I'm using, Testo. Little meter here. We've got different probes for doing like whether it's liquid, air and stuff like that. So this is the probe at the minute. It's connected via Bluetooth and this is reading the air temperature. So most of the time these things are mounted in corners or behind doors, next to fridges, just stuff like that, where you got an influence of a heat source or a slightly different temperature in a corner or something like that than what it would be in the center of the room. So I like to put a set of probe in the middle of the room, read the temperature in the middle of the room at roughly mid-height. And then whatever that reading is, I will then recalibrate the thermostat to that reading. So it's a more accurate reading of the temperature in the center of the room, rather than say over in the corner of the room it might be 0.5 or 1 degree cooler or something. What it's reading over that, what it's actually reading in that corner based on what it is actually in the middle of the room. So that's reading 19.2, and I've got this reading 20.8. Yeah, so we'll recalibrate this to 20.8. So that is the current temperature that it's reading, and I said 20.8, didn't I? Tick, tick. There you go, so it's recalibrated it to 20.7, 20.8 now. Sometimes these, you recalibrate it and it goes to a completely different temperature. It goes to as near a temperature as possible, like 21.1 or something like that. So sometimes you can't always get it bang on with to the point that, you know, 20 point whatever that you put it in, but you have to get it as close as you can. So that's recalibrated now to my temperature sensor in here. And then I will do that with all the thermostats in the house now, so they're a lot more accurate. I've had all these isolated now for a little while. Just got the assumed bedroom 2 on, and it is. As you can see, as mentioned before, that's combined with the ensuite. So that's that circuit identified now. So you can see the heat difference, can't you? In here you've got 28.2, and then you've got 32 degrees. So it's 4 degrees difference in there than what it is in here. So this is like 20, reading 22 in here. I've not recalibrated it yet. So that means it's 27 degrees in the bathroom. So that's an example of why you need to separate your ensuite's towel rails from your main heating circuits, main room heating circuits. Very important if you want, like I say, good control of the system and not to have rooms like saunas. So I'm just recalibrating the master bedroom. So 27.3, 26.5. So this is reading cooler than what it is. So you'll have this set at like 25, and actually it will get the room to 26 degrees. So that's why we need to do the recalibrating of these, so they're more accurate. $27.2, I had it in there. Come on. 27.4, well, that's the closest it's going to get. So that's that one done. I've just been recalibrating the loft room, because there's minimal places to install a thermostat in here. I mean, it could go there, but you've got like direct heat from the sun. You've got these these cupboards with tanks that are kicking it absolutely insanely hot. So he's like near a heat source, which isn't ideal, near a window, near a radiator, which isn't ideal. Then there's a door, cupboards, another heat source this side here. So I've decided to put it on a little stand in here. So you can just buy these stands separately. And because this thermostat is wireless, you can just clip it on and you can mount them anywhere you want in the house. So this is a bit more an optimal location for that. So we're going to stick that there. We've done the same with the hallway downstairs because that is shared toilet and hallway circuit. So I've said, look, we'll stick it on a stand and you can bounce it between the toilet and the hallway and you decide where you want it. The toilet will be boiling hot if it's in the hallway. So they can decide where they want to put it. So I've just recalibrated that now. Just doing some other final checks while I'm up here. So we've got, I always double check the sockets are switching again. So that's all labelled up, not to turn it off or switch it off. Second floor booster plug, on, off. So that's okay, and then we're just going to have a quick check of the ground floor tile. I've just got that on because I'm just testing it at the minute, because I'm just making sure that the actuator wasn't faulty, because it didn't seem like it was coming up very fast. So I'm just checking that hot water controller. So let's have a quick look at that while we're here. So these are normally pretty instantaneous as they are wired. So hot water on, timer is on, hot water off, timer is off. Yeah. So that's switching absolutely perfectly. So we've got the hot water now controlled and set on 2 on-off periods. On at 4 in the morning, off at 10. On at 4 in the afternoon, off at 11. Yeah, and just because it's got them on-off periods on there, that does not mean that it is on constantly. The cylinder has temperature sensors on it that are wired through the heating system. So as soon, even if it takes, say, from 4 till 5 to heat the tanks up, yeah, then once it reaches temperature, it turns them off until somebody empties the tanks or the tanks cool down. So that only means that the Heatmiser switch is on between them periods. That doesn't mean that the boiler is constantly on. I think people misunderstand that usually. They have a shower at 5, so I've set it at 4. But you'll have heat in the tanks from the night before as well. They hold the heat really well, these tanks. So most of the time you're just topping up the temperature that's there. Unless you've got loads of people in the house using all the showers and it's completely empty in the tanks, then it's heating from cold. So yeah, that's what the on-off periods are for on there, and that's functioning perfectly now. So I'll just give you a quick run through on how this looks now. We've got it set up. So you've got here on the left, and it'll look something similar on a mobile phone. So you can either have this on Android tablet mobile phone or an iPad or an iPhone. I like to move the boosters down so they're not at the top, because they're not really a priority then. Because the thermostats are more of a priority, aren't they? These, unless you're using these to switch, and then maybe you want them in a bit more of a main position, but yeah, you could basically switch all these around so you can work basically from top to bottom of the house. For example, like here we've got a 4-story house, so we could work from the top down so it's in logical order. And then like I say, I like having as we're not using the sockets for anything, plugging any appliances into them, I like to just get them out of the way because they're just acting as a booster. Okay, so I've got these all in the order that I want now, so just a bit more logical order. So we've got working from the top floor, top down. So we've got hot water controller is pretty much on the top floor. And then we've got second floor radiator. So top floor equipment, hot water controller. Also the hot water controller is quite important, so I've put that at that top place there. So second floor radiator, and then we're working down. We've got master bedroom, so I've got all the masters together. Master bedroom, master dressing room, master bedroom ensuite. And then we've got bedroom 1, bedroom 2, first floor main bathroom. Then we work to the next floor down, which is kitchen, dining room, hall and toilet, main lounge. And then we work to the cellar, which is cinema room, gym, games room. And then we've got the booster plugs at the end, which again, we're not really using them, so I'm not bothered. I just stick them at the back. Just using them as boosters, not as for switching appliances. So that's what it should look like. Something like that, the layout of it on your phone or tablet. Then to activate that area, you just click on the room that you want to, and then you just adjust the temperature that you want it to be at. I set everything, underfloor heating particularly, on non-programmable. Yeah, so in settings, and then you've got program mode. In there you've got your programmer settings. You always have underfloor heating on non-programmable because it takes a room a lot longer to heat up via underfloor heating than what a radiator does. One, it's got to get through all the material in the floor, and two, it works at a lot lower temperature than radiators do. So having, on-off periods for underfloor heating is not efficient. Your underfloor heating is never going to function properly if you do that. So underfloor heating on non-programmable. So that's how you use that. Your hot water controller there, so you can either toggle that on or off on override. You put it on auto and you just push edit there, and then you can adjust how many on-off periods that you want per day and adjust the times. Yeah, so that's how you adjust that. So you always leave that on auto if you want to use your times. If you put it on override, you can slide the slider just for, say you want to boost it for 4 hours. If it's in an off period, or you want to boost it for an hour, you can just do done, and then that'll come on for an hour. Yeah. So that's what the override's for. Standby just doesn't switch it on. So if you're going away on holiday, for example, you can put everything in standby, so nothing comes on, hot water, heating, anything. Yeah. So standby mode is there as well, which you can do this in bulk. So standby is the house with a little frost symbol on, so we can just go bang, 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 save and put them all on standby, yeah, because we go on holiday, for example. If you don't want someone faffing around with the thermostats, you can add a PIN number to the individual thermostat or to all the thermostats, so people can't be turning it up to like 30 degrees. So say, for example, if you have a holiday let and you've got this system in, people always faff with the thermostats, turn them up to ridiculous temperatures, which it's never going to climb to. It's never going to climb any faster, and then leave them running constantly, and then the heating's pumping out when no one's in the house. So this gives you if you've got kids who faff with stuff, or you've got a holiday let where people are faffing with the heating controls and you don't want them messing with the controls, you can put a pin on it. So that's the layout of the app and some of the functions that it has. So if you have multiple devices as well in the house, if you log into this with a password and an email, you need to set an account up. Once you've set the account up, if you've got 5 tablets in the house and 5 mobile phones, you can all just log into the same account and see the heating and control the heating across multiple devices.